Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breeze coming to you. I'm a little bit early for work today after the kids drop off. I start work at 9, so I figured that we'd sit here and do a little bit of wrestling discussion about the upcoming WrestleMania 32. Normally, on my way into work, I'll normally think of a video that if I get to work early that I'd be able to make to knock out a little bit of time. And as I was listening to the Wrestling Observer today, I was sitting there dreading as they brought up a point. They were talking about the plans for WrestleMania 32 of Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar are now officially not going to happen. There's some thought out there that some people think they're going to do another match after Hell in the Cell, that this is just sort of another chapter in the story, and that the story will end at WrestleMania between Brock and Taker. But Dave said that he asked around, and officially as of right now, the word is that Brock versus Undertaker is not on the plans for WrestleMania 32 anymore. They're going in a different direction. No word on what that is going to be. And right then, I was like, no. And then Brian just had to pry into it, basically talking about the fact that, Brock Lesnar is going to be on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. Last time Paul Heyman was on the Steve Austin podcast, you had basically the can of worms opened up with Paul Heyman basically prying into Stone Cold Steve Austin, asking if there would be a match against Brock Lesnar in his foreseeable future, and Stone Cold Steve Austin went into Stone Cold Steve Austin mode and basically opened a huge can of worms that Vince McMahon didn't like, talking about the fact of, if there was going to be a match, that they would have to do this and they'd have to do this, and of course he's going to go over. Brock's not there, so maybe he should just start whooping his ass. Austin didn't know what to do, but it was almost like Heyman poked the bear a little bit and opened up a can of worms where Austin didn't know how to get out of it without, basically not looking like a wuss if he didn't, go all in on this. I know that he's talked in the past about the fact that he doesn't think he'll ever wrestle again. I can remember people always trying to get a match out of him for CM Punk at a WrestleMania. And a lot of people were asking, would CM Punk come back to wrestling at WrestleMania 30 if he got a match against Stone Cold Steve Austin? That's definitely a match that Punk never shied away from. And definitely they did the video game launch where they did the sort of back and forth interview where they were doing a promo against each other that was supposed to be hyping up a video game. Jim Ross was there in the middle of it, I'm pretty sure. And that got a lot of eyes on it, and a lot of people were thinking that Austin versus Punk was going to happen. But basically, Austin, sort of sat there and thought to himself about what he was doing, and he said basically if he came back to wrestling and he wrestled the one last match and it wasn't any good, people would always sort of, think of that as the book end of his career, and that's not the way that he wants to be thought of. I mean, he had his last match against The Rock at WrestleMania 19, a match that honestly, in my opinion, wasn't the best. But, Austin definitely was at the peak of his stardom. He was starting to go down a little bit. If he was going to go out, that was probably the best time. If he didn't have the trouble with his neck, and he didn't have the trouble, at that time was, he said he just was off the handle. He was drinking too many energy drinks. He was, I think he said he was popping too many pills at the time, and he was mixing things up. And everybody knows about the story from watching the documentary on the WrestleMania 20 DVD, that he basically passed out the night before. He had to go to the hospital. He had to get some IVs. Nobody told him that he couldn't wrestle, but he never asked for permission. He just went out and did what he had to do. Because of the fact that WWE was a publicly traded company at the time, and Vince was scared that if they announced that their biggest star, Stone Cold Steve Austin, wasn't going to be wrestling anymore, it would cripple the company. The stock would just take a nosedive. They basically had to have a quiet retirement for him, where basically he lost the match. They made it look like he was going to be coming back sooner than later. One thing led to another, and he ended up coming back as the GM. I think anybody who was, going on the dirt sheets at the time, or anybody with the brain, could tell that Austin's career was pretty much over. He became the sheriff on Monday Night Raw, being the second hand to Eric Bischoff. They never really saw eye to eye, but it made, Monday Night Raw a whole lot more fun. But I know people are going to be asking, is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar going to happen? I honestly think that it's still going to be a no. I just think that Austin has too much to gamble, whether it's coming back. Definitely if he does come back, he's going to sell a ton of t-shirts. But if the match sucks, people's always going to think about him. I know this is an older reference, and people might not get it, but if you're my age or older, you'll definitely think about, Willie Mays, the way he ended his career, playing for the New York Mets. He was just out there basically making money. He was dropping fly balls in the outfield. He was falling down, swinging the bat at home plate. He couldn't hit to save his life. He was just there to help the Mets try and sell tickets, just off of his name alone of being Willie Mays. And that's sort of, how you think of Willie Mays when you think about it. You think about the demise, the fall of him. And I don't really want to think of Stone Cold Steve Austin as a guy that can't get it done. Honestly, in my mind, it's hard for me to think of Stone Cold Steve Austin going out there and failing, but I guess it is something that could happen. And when you go out on top, it's always something that you think of. And you also have to think of the Mick Foley effect, where basically, like Mick Foley, he retired back in 2000 when he had the Hell in the Cell match in Triple H. And if he never would have had another match, he would have gone out way on top. They dragged him back for WrestleMania 2000. Definitely he wanted to be in the main event of a WrestleMania. Definitely he wanted that payday. WrestleMania 2000 wasn't that great. And I can't think of when he came back another time. But if you think about, he came back in... what year was that? Would that be like 2002, 2003, I guess? He came back and he had the match against Randy Orton, which was a damn good feud. And he had one hell of a good, I think it was a no holds barred or hardcore or something, some kind of match, with Orton going into the thumbtacks, a match that a lot of people say is the match that got Orton a whole lot of respect, and got him over with the fans. He does that match. People say how great the match is, so he goes out there and does one more match. And that match, wasn't as good as the other one. And people think of that as him not being able to get it done anymore. And Foley did that back and forth throughout his career a few times, coming back for the paydays and things like that. And, on his DVDs and in his books, he talks about the fact that he wish he wouldn't have done that. I mean, he basically regrets his whole TNA run, going there, winning the championship. He said it was a job. He wanted to have one. But definitely going out there and winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship definitely put a whole lot more pressure on him that he should have had. Him going in there as the authority figure and having that kind of role, maybe that would have worked. But him being the guy that had to go out there and wrestle in the main event matches was a little bit more pressure than he should have had on him. If they're going to blow up the WrestleMania 32 card, as of right now, the only thing that we thought we had was Triple H versus The Rock, and then we also had Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar. Definitely, you have to go back to the Brock versus Rock match, the rematch from SummerSlam 2002, the match that we all thought was going to happen. If you go back to the WrestleMania 31 weekend, definitely right after Rock re-signed with WWE and decided not to go back to UFC that a lot of people thought he was going to do. Definitely the rumor that was out there was that Brock versus Rock for WrestleMania 32 was going to be the main event. But for some reason, we're all still holding on to that SmackDown promo between Triple H and The Rock from last year, basically where they said they would have a big match and they would wrestle in front of 100,000 people. And the rumor never went away that match was going to happen. Brock vs. Rock is going to sell some tickets. It's going to get people talking. It's definitely the biggest name in professional wrestling going up against the biggest, actor / wrestler in the world. Those are the two most over guys in WWE. It doesn't matter if they only appear once or twice throughout the year, or if they only, wrestle, 4 or 5 times a year. I'm not sure how many times Rock is going to wrestle on this new contract. It seems like he's wrestling almost every other month. He's making 3 big appearances in the month of October. It's Brocktober on the WWE Network. Brock Lesnar's Go to Hell tour. I don't know. It definitely has people talking. When I got that credit card bill in the mail last month. Everybody knows I had the trouble with my truck. I had to buy a new transmission. That was almost $4,000. I had trouble with my computer, so I decided to buy a new one. Maybe I should have rethought that one and tried to fix the old one instead of just going and getting a new one. But the WrestleMania 32 plans are not dead. They're still alive. I just gotta make some money. And we'll see where we get to from there. But man, WrestleMania 32, right up around the corner. I know this time of year, wrestling really starts to hit the skids, and you're hoping that it gets better. Definitely Brock wrestling on the Madison Square Garden show. That should be a lot of fun. I don't think it's going to be as fun as the Japan show, just because of the fact that we have to stay up so late, and this one will probably just be on at night like a normal pay-per-view would be. It's going to be a ton of fun. Lesnar and Austin should be bringing it. I'm hoping that honestly we have some sort of. You might have to look this up if you're not old like me, but look up Jim Everett on the Jim Rome show. That's what I want to see at the end of Raw. I want to see basically Austin calling out Brock pushing the set over, going after Austin. We have dead air. Just that mass confusion of what the fuck happened in this show. I don't want to see them just sit back and have a discussion. Maybe even look up Brock Lesnar's interview. I believe it was on ESPN, where the guy did not directly ask Brock Lesnar if wrestlers or him were on steroids. He just said, they're so big, really, really big. And Brock just grabs his microphone, tears it off, and says, "We're done here," and walks off on him. That's what I want to see on the Austin and Brock show. But maybe they can get something that people start talking about WrestleMania 32, because I've had my doubts. 100,000 people is a lot of people. It's trying to find 25,000 wrestling fans that didn't want to go to WrestleMania 30, didn't want to go to WrestleMania 31. It's definitely up in the number, but it's definitely the goal for WrestleMania 32.